Welcome back, folks. Power of Space. Today, I have a special guest, Mr. Brandon Lee. Brandon is a friend. He's a client. He's someone I've done some cool work with, which we'll talk about here in a bit. I met him through another friend. And before I let you introduce yourself, Brandon, I'll say that we both are nerds at heart. And I mean that from a place where, like, we align on stuff like finding a genius, and you happen to know how to deconstruct things, which is beautiful. And I like to express my artists. And I will say that in the short time I've known you and worked with you, I've learned quite a few things. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for you being here. How would you like to introduce yourself? Who is Brandon Lee?
Is Brandon Lee? That is the question.
Mm,
Um, some nouns I often go by when it comes to websites and profile descriptions. I usually say like mentor, giver, teacher, curious human, uh, and I guess sometimes the reinventionist is a term that I use. So those are some nouns. But yeah, currently what I'm working on is building a personality test company that of course you have helped me with. It's called Genius of You, and yeah, that's the current main thing. But we can dive into the weeds from there.
yeah, we will. We will indeed. Yeah, I like that. I've sensed that, definitely sensed the mentor, the giver in you, and curiosity for sure. I think that's another reason I use the word nerd, is because I actually value that word in a way where it aligns with curiosity. And it's been fun. It's been fun being curious with you because a lot of people have forgotten how to stay curious. A lot of people,
Yeah, I think it's a mix of forgotten and trained out of, and
mm,
lack of incentives for that, among other things.
mm,
I
yeah,
yeah, generally agree.
well said. So, a few things today with our time together. Um, I almost want to give you the opportunity to share. I'll pose a question and then we'll see where it goes. So, part of your work in the world revolves around understanding your genius, and plural, your geniuses, let's just say. Where did that journey start for you?
Where did that start? I think that started in terms of articulation, like being able to describe the shape of it and feel for it for myself, was when I was reading 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. That's a book by Jim Dethmer and Diana Chapman.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, they have 15 chapters, and each chapter describes a different principle or aspect of personal growth. Well, I guess commitment in their context is commitments of conscious leadership.
Yeah.
And some examples of that are like taking responsibility, feeling all your feelings, integrity, play, candor, and one specific one was genius. And that was where I think that was probably the first time I got primed on the concept of genius and got some awareness around that. And that's actually what informed the entire premise of the assessment that I built. But that would say, yeah, that I would say is where my original awareness grew around what do I actually enjoy and what is even genius. And genius, I think if I were to give a formal definition, I think it's the intersection of what you enjoy and what you are skilled at. So it's the
Mm-hmm.
intersection of the two.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, so that was back in 2020. So that was about, yeah, a little over 4 years ago, where I feel like I got some that really started shaping my lens and how I saw and approached life.
That is cool, man. Yeah, that book. Wow. I'm actually now I have to think. Dude, that book might have come into our lives at the same time
Oh
because,
yeah.
yeah, I think right around four, maybe 5 years ago, I also read that book. Did you read that book because of Tim?
Um, I did not read it because of Tim, but the person who introduced me to Tim was in a 15 commitments container with him. So that's
Cool.
how they met. So
Very cool. Okay, awesome. So for the audience, Tim is a fellow friend of ours, and it's how we know each other.
yeah.
And I was made aware of that book by Tim.
Hmm.
It's on my favorite bookshelf right behind me. That book has so much depth. I actually
Hmm.
kind of know their team pretty well, especially Erica, one of their partners. I know her very well. She's a mentor and a friend. And as you said, there's so much. My curiosity just jumped when I was reading this book, and Genius was part of it. I read into a bit of Genius by Gay Hendricks, which inspired some of CLG's understanding and teaching around genius. So it's this whole beautiful, awesome world. And that's really cool that it came into orbit for both of us at a pretty similar time. But then you took it further. That's what's cool. So tell us a little bit about that. You took it further.
I took it further. So when you read any part of 15 Commitments or any of the chapters, there's actually an accompanying worksheet that you can find on their website. And when I was reading 15 Commitments, I was reading it as a book club with two other friends, and we were committed to read each chapter and also do the actual worksheets for every chapter. And so when we got to the Genius chapter, we committed to doing the worksheet, and that original worksheet is the original DNA of this entire assessment. And
Mm,
so you can actually go to, I think you can Google just, I think best stuff exercise. If you just
yeah.
Google that plus CLG, you'll find that worksheet.
Mhm.
And that, and to sum up that worksheet, it's basically they asked you to come up with 8 moments in your life in which you both enjoyed what you were doing and it created an outcome you were proud of.
Yeah.
And so my two friends and I, we did this exercise. We filled out our 8 moments, and then the last step is to share these 8 moments with people around you and ask them to reflect back to you what they're seeing, what patterns they're seeing with your 8 moments.
Yeah.
And when we did this exercise, the three of us, for whatever reason, my synthesis and reflection of my two friends, are like, hey, they gave me their 8, and I said, hey, this is what I see. For some reason, they felt that my synthesis was a lot more profound than the ones that they gave each other.
Mhm.
They were like, yo, yours is different. Like you're doing it at a different level. And I was surprised and confused, honestly, because I'm like, I'm just looking at what I see. It's just like I see, look, I'm looking at the sky and it's blue. That's what it felt like to me. And they're like, no, this is different. And so they told me, hey, you should just do it with a couple of other friends and see what they say. And did it with 6 other friends. They were also like, this is powerful. I'm like, okay. They suggested I post it on Facebook, get more people to do it. And yeah, the rest is history. From there, like 25 people signed up. I think Tim was introduced to me around that time as well. And basically, over the span of a year, about 100 people had taken it, had done this exercise one on one with me. And all through word of mouth, besides that first Facebook post. And that was the first sign that, okay, there's something here. People are really interested in this in a very interesting way, and in a way there's demand pull. Like other people are trying to pull this out of me. And that doesn't happen very often
Mm,
in the world of business. That's like the secret sauce of business
yeah.
is when customers are banging on your door. Um, and that's kind of what happened, or that's how it started growing into something else.
Hmm.
And as more people started signing up, the the natural data junkie in me was, there's probably some patterns in
Yeah.
everyone sharing this, and there's probably something we can distill. I can probably codify it at some point if I have enough people who take it. Um, and so that's basically what happened. Ended up having 300 people take it before I started building the groundwork for the digital assessment, which we now have today in a much more developed form.
Right. Wow. Okay. So the assessment today is called Genius of You, which we'll talk about in a second. But this is really cool just to hear this and reflect back to you that it started with you and some friends doing the work,
Mhm.
right? And then you got some great feedback like, hey, you're whatever you're doing here, you're skilled at, you're talented at, right?
Hmm.
And then you started sharing this and other people, again, gravitated towards you. I like the term you use, demand pull. I think it's really important for people because you're right. It's rare for you to create or offer something and then have demand pull. Usually it's the opposite. You have to market it and you have to shout from the mountains, hey, here's what I'm doing. But that's so cool that organically, because I'm a huge advocate for organic growth,
Hmm.
or there was this organic demand, and then boom, the nerd data junkie in you is like, oh, there's patterns here. I love
There's
that part.
patterns.
That's what we're gonna get to. Because
Yeah.
yeah, you are very skilled at that, at least from my experience in extracting patterns, looking at them. And so tell us now, tell us, bring us to today. We have the genius of you, site, platform, assessment. It's all kinds of cool things.
Hmm. Um, yeah, in terms of what it looks like now.
Yeah, maybe talk a little bit about how you started to evolve the patterns into something, and then you can talk about the different genius types you've created.
Yeah, so probably around my probably around like the 10th, between the 10th and 20th iteration of exercises that I'd done with people one-on-one, I had already started defining maybe the first three genius categories.
Mhm.
And then probably by the time I hit 50, I was confident about like five or six of them. And then, yeah, it took me until like 100, 200 to finally settle on the final seven that we have.
Cool.
And so now, yeah, there's seven genius categories, and all of them were basically distilled from looking at the moments that all those users shared. And all the prompts, or a lot of the prompts, were informed by things that specific examples that people had shared. And yeah, so basically quantify the assessment currently just quantifies people's relative enjoyment on all seven of those dimensions. Um, and yeah, so when people read the results, they're basically seeing how they score on each set, all seven of them, but also how extreme they are from each other. Because some people score very similarly, like all their scores kind of cluster around the same number, and other people are a lot more extreme, where it's like one they really, really like, and the other they really, really resist or don't like. And there's a way to quantify all that in a way that leads to more practical life insights. So and then, yeah, once they take the assessment, they see that graph that your team has wonderfully put together. And there's all this commentary that I've written around, hey, here's how to possibly interpret each of those geniuses in a way that is practical, how you can apply it in your personal life, how you can apply it in your professional life, uh, how you can work, like focus more on the strengths, how you can work on the growth areas, stuff like that. And so, yeah, it's definitely blossomed into something pretty robust. And yeah, I'm hoping to continue to add to it as this grows. But that's where
Yes,
we are today. Yeah.
dude. Yes, awesome. So I'm gonna support you and explain, give a high level overview. There are seven genius types in the personal genius. You have a whole other work set, which maybe we'll talk about. But to list them for the audience, presence is one genius, somatic is another, coach, alchemist, superhuman, artisan, and deconstructor. And so, to share a little bit about what Brandon just articulated, my strongest genius is artisan. And the essence of this genius is about how much you enjoy expression, uniqueness, and creation. And then, as you mentioned, he gives all this beautiful insight around understanding your artisan, strengths, gaps, compatibility, and we'll link to this so that users can go take the assessment because it's free. But there's also a lot of I want to honor that you've put a lot of energy into this. It's not just like here's your scores. Like that's an easy way to do this, but
Mhm.
when you take the assessment, you'll see not only does it score you, it gives percentiles, which Brandon explains kind of the meaning and the algorithm for that. And then there's, like I said, all these awesome insights around strengths, gaps, compatibility. And I will say, as someone who used this product before I collaborated with you to kind of bring the assessment and the user experience to life, it really does match how I feel about myself.
Mm,
Um, and I like what's unique about this compared to other assessments is how you mapped it to energy. So things that give me energy, things that
mm,
might not give me energy, because it's easy to take assessments and get scored and
mm.
ranked. And it's almost like they see you, and
Yeah.
that's fine. But this one for me energetically is more about feeling. So it's like I feel like an artisan,
Mm.
um, regardless of how I'm seen in the world. Like, so I just want to give you some props because I think that's part of the magic that you brought to this.
Yeah,
Your
and that's
yeah, go ahead.
and that's that ties to my personal gripes with a lot of other assessments.
Hmm.
Like in taking a lot of other assessments and designing the questions for Genius of You, there's a few frames that other assessments will use that I think create a lot of noise for and contributes to the reason why a lot of people don't resonate with the results, or they feel like they have to squint and be like, I guess kinda.
Right.
And that's sometimes the reaction. And two specific versions of this are there's questions that other assessments will ask around like, do you identify with this kind of person or this kind of behavior? So it's around identity, like a story that you've crafted about yourself,
Hmm.
and that could be rooted in a variety of things. And so I think the noisiness around that is what contributes to that. That's one layer. So like asking about self-identification, which can be noisy, and the other is um, perception of others. Or there's assessments that are like others would say that you're like this,
Mm, yeah.
and so like that's heavily reliant on whether those people see you accurately.
Hmm.
And so that's like another layer of noise. So when I yeah, in building a lot of the prompts, I made sure that those two variables were not there because I think that just contributes to someone reading the result and be like, I don't feel like this on because a lot of people in most people's lives, the people around them don't actually understand them uh, like perfectly,
Yeah.
especially your colleagues, especially family, depending on how close or not you are, and or which sides you feel like you have permission to show up in. So that's just a related thought on like specific assessment design to try to get closer to the truth of how someone actually is, as opposed to the story that they've developed as a result of the words that they hear or stories that they've told themselves over the years.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I love that. I felt I've experienced that I've experienced your energy and thoughtfulness in this, in collaborating with you. And I think it's important because yeah, a lot of assessments do just want to quickly categorize you on their terms, which
Hmm.
is fine. That's just the way that they're
Yeah.
constructing their view and data set, whereas you're really intentional about getting deeper into the relationship. And in fact, we've had some interesting discussions around math. I imagine did you enjoy do you still enjoy doing math? Was that a part of school for you? Was it natural for you?
Math specifically, I didn't enjoy it because of the way it was taught,
Mm,
right? I think I enjoy having math competency now, more because it's now project based.
yeah.
Like it's math to do something. Like like learning physics, the idea of learning physics in general would be really dry and uninteresting to me. But if I had somehow like developed a career to be an astrophysicist, and now my mission was like get a rocket to into orbit, and now I need math to do that, that is way different of a scenario. And if
Yeah,
if
yeah,
I
yeah.
was taught math on that premise of like if you learn this, you can actually send rockets to the moon. I'm like, oh, okay, that'd be interesting.
Mm,
So I think the way that I was taught math was incredibly dry and incredibly divorced from an actual real life objective, as is most education is. And I
mm,
think that yeah, to answer the question, no, I didn't enjoy how I was taught math. It
mm.
was
Yeah,
terrible, but
no.
I was kind of brute forced through it. But yeah, now I'm using more math via doing using a lot of Excel work. And it's a lot more fun to learn math when there's an objective that I care about creating.
Yes, that's a great point. Yep,
Yeah.
I dig that. Yeah, and what sparked that question was I found myself revisiting math
Mm,
with some of the programming and the analysis of the scores and interpretations, which is cool because it's exactly what you described, is that
mm,
math is so theoretical and impractical until you have a use case for it. And I
yes.
think that's why many people
Or any subject.
yeah, yeah, great.
Yeah.
Exactly. It is. It's so much more enjoyable, practical when you're like, oh, I have something to solve, not just are you testing me to test me, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
and so in terms of how it relates to the assessment, the reason why it's fun is because I'm like one objective is I'm trying to deliver personalization at scale, right? I'm trying to deliver an experience on the assessment where like anyone who takes it, whatever combination of scores, I'm trying to present results that still feel some level of personalized.
mhm,
And the only way that I can do that, or actually there's two ways to do that. One is I predict for every combination of scores that is possible, and I have your team hard code all the custom inputs based off of every single iteration. And that's just ridiculous. That's just no one's going to do that. The smarter way is if you can use math to predict for particular outcomes and combinations, and create results based on that math, because the math will factor for every variable. And so the interesting challenge is, okay, what math do I use to accurately convey and predict for those things and create enough separation of like, well, given this combination of scores, how do I even classify what is their highest genius? How do I classify what is the bottom genius? And we can all eyeball it pretty well and intuitively guess it, but in order to translate it into math is like a completely different story, and that's where the fun or
mm.
that's where the relevance now uh, comes back in. So yeah.
Yes, dude. So you mentioned another cool word, puzzle. Your one of your highest geniuses is deconstructor, correct?
Hmm.
Which has can have a relationship to puzzle, the let me describe this. The essence of this genius is about how much you enjoy thinking in frameworks and applying them. What would you share about that and perhaps um, your nature to solve puzzles? Like, where'd that come from?
Where did that come from? I mean, I don't know. Like as far as I understand, like some people have asked, "Hey, with this genius framework, is this innate or can
Mhm.
this change?" I don't have enough data to conclusively say, but my current answer is I think in the short term, some of the things can fluctuate a little bit, but I'm not convinced yet, or I don't have evidence that says that like the extremes will change. I don't know if someone can go from like this is my lowest thing to this is now my highest thing. And so I'm not sure, I'm not convinced. I would be surprised if that happens. And so in my particular case of deconstructor being a far leader in my genius mix, I don't know if there's anything that anyone could have done to turn that on or off. Um, and so when you ask like where did that come from? I don't know. Like as
Mhm.
far as I understand, the moment that prefrontal cortex develop started happening, and even there were hints of it prior. I was always trying to think about why, and like I was always able to see nuance, and I was incredibly frustrated whenever people generalized too much. And so, as far as I'm concerned, probably starting in middle school, high school was when I started noticing those frustrations within myself.
Mm,
And I don't think anyone really conditioned that for me that I'm
mhm.
aware of, at least not consciously.
Yeah, yeah, cool. No, it's a great answer. I like the humility in that, in starting with I don't know and then backing into some potential information
Theories.
that might inform. Because as I was answering it myself, I was thinking I've always felt a connection to the artisan,
Hmm.
uh, going back to that same time period. I was thinking like, when would this have showed up? And it showed up when I think I could feel capable of knowing that I was in an artistic endeavor, whether that was in
Mhm.
school or like my first job was mowing lawns. And I remember I would care about mowing the lawn, like how it looked.
Mm.
It would
Mm.
bother me if I did like a
Mm.
sloppy job, you know?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
these little things that start to come back when we traverse our history and say,
Yeah.
ah, where did this deconstructor show up? Where did this artisan show up? So to your point, maybe there doesn't need to be any evidence because it could be subjective on oh well when did this start whatever, but I think it's cool to at least know it's a part of you and then go back and say, hey, where might I have sensed energy around this when I was younger, you know?
So my girlfriend is also high artisan.
Mhm.
So I'm curious if this applies to you. Have you played a lot of video games? And
Oh
did you
yeah, as
play
a
it?
kid all the time.
Okay. So this is true of her, and I'm curious how true it is for you. How much did you pay attention to storylines
mm,
when you played video games?
I think I paid attention to them. Yeah, I think
And how much did it matter your in deciding whether you would play or not, or how much you enjoyed the game, or how much you gravitated towards it?
it would. So for a game like Zelda it mattered a lot.
Mm.
If it was a different game, what comes to mind is like, oh no, actually, like GoldenEye was a game that I invested a lot of time in when I
Mhm.
was younger. So yeah, the story was important. And the one contradiction I'm thinking to that is that when there are other games where it'd be like playing against another user,
Oh, sure, sure,
for,
sure.
for that it was for me it was about pattern recognition, so this deconstructor type, and then mastery and saying, well, if I can analyze your patterns, I'm going to be a step ahead of you, almost like a chess environment.
Sure.
But the
Yeah.
story was important to me. Back to your question.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. So I remember playing Ocarina of Time. I've played Pokemon, uh, and so I've played a decent amount of I think a decent amount of story-based games, and this is consistent. I just blaze through the score. I just keep clicking. So I don't actually remember any of the storylines because I don't care
Yeah.
because I think partly my artisan is probably my second or third lowest.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so there's something so like I'll probably do more like on the ground research about this, but I think that's one example where we can start seeing hints when someone's younger. And yeah, it'll be so interesting once I get more of a fuller picture of people's childhoods around their geniuses, and maybe we can get closer to answering the question of like how innate is this,
Mm.
and how well does it carry out into adulthood.
Dude, yeah. Yeah, I love that. The other thing just to mention is that beyond these seven personal types, you've also created a work version.
Hmm.
And so, to give the audience a quick understanding of that, again, there's seven genius types, but these are related to a more professional environment, professional relationship. These seven types are dreamer, assessor, innovator, mobilizer, revealer, executor, and supporter. And these are cool in their own right because you have a whole different explanation, narrative, but the same model where you're giving people feedback. And these can be done with your teams. So we were a nice use case for you. Me and my team at MemberDev, we all took the assessment and then you gave us some beautiful reflection. And I will say again, having gone through it as a user with you, not only was your role in it really cool to watch and see, but it helped us just identify some blind spots, some
Hmm.
gaps, so some things where it's like, huh, probably wouldn't have gotten to that ourselves
Hmm.
without the Genius of You system, without the framework and the reflection that you did. So we're grateful for that. Anything you want to share on the work side?
Yeah, I mean, it's specific. Yeah, well, one of the early questions that Tim and I were pondering was how predictive is the original genius assessment and how translatable and predictive it in the work environment? Like, if we know someone that has this genius, uh, what can we predict about how they will show up in the work environment?
Mm-hmm.
And I think having enough conversations around that, w- I realized that there might not be a strong correlation. And so that's when I realized, well, there's a gap then. There's like we're missing meaningful data about how someone can show up in the real world and in applied context. So with that gap, like we're missing some level of utility. It's like there's going to be you're leaving something to be desired for when if a company ends up taking just the genius assessment or an employee just takes that, we're just missing information about how they'll actually show up. And so in the pursuit of trying to answer that question of how can we design work to be more conducive or friendly to what we actually fundamentally enjoy, well, we're missing information and we need to fill that information gap. And so that's what that was the onus for creating the work side. And
Mm.
I think it does a good job because there were some assumptions and guesses that I had around, hey, I think this genius is probably predictive of that. Turns out it's all over the place.
Mhm.
There's probably only one genius that has a really strong correlation that's really similar. But besides that, a lot of them are just all over the place.
Mm, cool. Yeah. That is cool, man. Yeah, I encourage people with teams to explore this because it's unique. So it's something different than what you've probably been exposed to in the other, assessment world. It's got Brandon's nice magic and flair built in, and also you get. I would emphasize you get time with him in an early phase, which is
Mhm.
valuable. So as you just shared, like there's enough data to make some cool realizations, but there's also maybe not enough data for the other, opposite reason where people get all this data and then they're generalizing and they're calculating things. So I think there's advantages of being involved in something when it's early. That's kind of the point I'm making.
Yeah.
Because it's different as things evolve, and it's cool to see it grow in the early stages.
Yeah, it's interesting because I recently took a different assessment from a different group that does basically kind of the same thing where it's like a professional environment, have everyone on your team take it, and they sent me like a 15-page report, and I'm like, I'm not gonna read through all this. Like,
Right,
I
right.
don't, there's all this new language, I don't know how to
Yep.
really make sense of it, and so I think yeah, part of the thing I'm bridge that I'm trying to build it for people for teams who take it is yeah, I think most people who are working don't have time to deeply understand the entire framework or a brand new framework they've come across for the first time and having well in this particular case having someone who built the entire framework explain it to you and answer live questions for you about how you can apply it that that's what makes it valuable. It's just like there's potential value in having taken the assessment, but to actualize it, the amount of energy and effort for most teams to extract that themselves is really high. And so basically having me involved in the process just shortcuts the time to value and time to insight. So yeah.
100%. 100%, man. So yeah, check it out. Um, this is but perhaps one of several conversations. So thank you, Brandon. I just want to give people a nice overview of the work
Mhm.
you're doing right now, some of the work you're doing.
Mhm.
One more question, and then we'll wrap with a few fun rapid fire questions. But aside from this, what else is in focus? What else are you creating space for right now?
Right now, not much, because I'm in kind of bootstrap grind mode. But the slivers of time are I'm spending with the girlfriend, going to a few events to meet more cool people in the Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so when there's high resonance, I'll carve out time to meet with someone. Um, reading, I'm following politics right now because the election's coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but besides that, not that much else. Uh, at least
Cool, man. Yeah.
until Genius of You takes off in a way that makes sense.
I respect the focus. As an artisan, again, it's easy for me to be attracted to a lot of things.
Yeah.
And while that can be a source of energy, it can also drain me at times. So I have to really watch that and be like, ooh, how many things have I said yes to? How many things am I deploying energy into? So I always respect when people are clear, like, hey, right now this is the focus, and I'm gonna give it most of what I have. So that's cool. I'll also give you a shout out. At least I admire and respect that you've created a really cool nomadic lifestyle. Are you still
Mhm.
traveling a bit?
Yeah, so most of my time for the last 2 years has been split between Puerto Rico, uh, some New York, some Boulder, and then the Bay Area. So
Mhm.
the two strongest ones are Bay Area and Puerto Rico. Yeah, just doesn't really make sense to pay rent in an high cost of living city when I don't know, work can be remote, especially when you're working on something that's not place based. So
Yeah, dude. Yep. That's smart of you. It's cool
yeah,
too. The places you mentioned are pretty cool places to explore and navigate. So that's awesome. All right. Few fun questions. You up for that?
sure, let's do it.
Great. First one is what's your favorite book?
The one that's come up the most is Give and Take by Adam Grant.
Mm.
Um, yeah, do you want me to explain it, or should we? Or I don't know if that's the
Sure,
intention
yeah,
of
yeah.
rapid fire.
No, quick plug on why you chose that. Sure.
Oh, okay, Give and Take. The premise of Give and Take is about how givers fall to the bottom of the success ladder. They tend to be the least successful, and they are also the most successful. So the
Mm.
book basically differentiates what is the difference between givers that are not successful and then those that are. Um, the reason why it's my favorite is because at the time, early in my career, I had decided I do want to be a giver. Like that feels important to me in terms of my values, but I had a level of pessimism around it because the media kind of portrays that in order to be rich, wealthy, or successful, you kind of have to be an asshole. Like
Mm.
that's just what at least gets highlighted.
Hmm.
And at the time, I didn't have any counterpoints to feel confident that, oh yeah, like there are a lot of successful people that are givers. I couldn't confidently say that at the time. And I read this book probably in my mid 20s, and when I read it, I'm like, like it gave me the final conviction that I needed that one, I'm allowed to be on this path, and then two, it's actually a winning recipe. And
Mm.
so that's it. Yeah, it just gave me optimism to be a giver in a way that actually contributes to building a life and career that I also enjoy and that feels successful as well.
Awesome, man. Yeah, thank you for sharing. I love that. Next question. What's one of your favorite trips or experiences?
Uh, how are we defining trip?
However you like to.
Oh man. So yeah, I'm not a place guy in the sense
Okay.
of like there's not a physical place that when I go to this stands out like because I don't really think about it. This is very deconstructor-esque. Like I'm so in my head that like so long as I have food and my laptop and like means to sleep like and get around, I'm pretty happy camper. Um, so the idea of having a favorite in terms of geography is just not really a thing for me. But if we're just talking about trips, however we want to define it, I would say probably that one of the first, my first LSD trip was pretty good.
Mm.
Yeah,
Well, I knew there was a reason for that smile when you smiled and started laughing. So I sense why.
yeah,
Perhaps that's a combo for another episode.
that's
Otherwise, I
probably a different combo.
yeah.
Yeah.
But very cool, dude. I dig it. All right. Last question. What's one of your favorite childhood memories?
Uh, what comes to mind is, um, I grew up in church and uh, my closest friend at the time, we were the same age and we also lived in the same area. So our parents usually carpooled us to back and forth from church. So we just spent a lot of time together. Basically, every weekend, we'd be spending anywhere between like 6 to 8 hours with each other,
Mm.
uh, going to church together and also commuting. Um, so I think some of the moments that come to mind are us just being kids and being super rambunctious and like being in the back of the car as our parents are driving us. And we'd just be singing all these random songs and like making all these fart jokes. And yeah, it was just pure. I remember just crying, laughing so many times during
Mm.
those years with him. Uh, so that comes to mind.
I love that, man. That's
Yeah.
real. It's authentic.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Well,
Yeah.
Brandon, thank you again, brother. This was a gift,
Yeah.
and I'm grateful to have shared some of your story, to share the genius of you. Go check it out. We'll link to all the beautiful things, and I'm excited to see what you do with it, man. See how it grows.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for helping build it. Yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes and what it can become.
It's been fun. Yes.